All right, so I'm going to move on to a topic called detoxification. So actually, I was just want to share you this little story. So I remember in high school there was this gorgeous, really attractive woman in high school, and 10 years later I went back to the high school reunion, and I was like totally shocked that she kind of looked like this. And I was like dumbfounded. It was like, wow. I mean, here I just, I was in medical school or just out of medical school doing residency or something like that. And I just didn't understand the accelerated aging process. It took me years to figure this out. It was one of those things that, you see an event and then later you think about it. And aging is really, it's one of those things that, genetically, if you're cursed, if you have short telomeres, that's going to accelerate the aging process. But it's really about oxidative stress and removing environmental toxins out of our body. And that's really important. So detoxification helps not only for weight loss, not only for aging gracefully, but it also can help with energy production. And there's this phrase, we are what we eat. And unfortunately, the American diet is a sad diet. We are what we drink, and all day long I tell my patients cut back on alcohol, even though some of them own vineyards and they have a big collection of wine. It's what we breathe. We are what we touch. And we are what we think. And I have several patients who just like, it's just like, wow, I'm going to get cancer. It's like, why do you think like that? Just, if you think like that, you're going to get it. So, just think positive. So, and we are what we can't get rid of, toxins. So, we are, in the United States, I actually travel next week to South Korea, be there for 2 weeks, and it's a very small, South Korea basically is 0.7% of the in terms of land. It's very small, but very condensed. So imagine New York City, just 10 times more busier in there. So we live in a country that there's a lot of environmental toxins. In Pittsburgh it's relatively clean, but I'm sure 30 years ago it wasn't. I wasn't here 30 years ago in Pittsburgh, but I've heard a lot of stories like you hang your clothes and on the clothesline, and it's white, but by the time you hang, it's dry, it's has all the soot on it. So there's exhaust, and we get exposed to everything. It's just, there's no safe place in the world that you're going to be free of environmental toxins. The foods we eat have herbicides and pesticides. I mean, there's this thing about being organic and all that, but you know that even if you eat organic foods and you have an organic garden, it may be antibiotic-free, pesticide-free, herbicide-free, but guess what it has? Anyone? Has heavy metals. Think about it. Every time, here's the Pittsburgh airport. Every time a plane flies, it's sprinkling heavy metals, out of this exhaust. It just doesn't disappear. It goes down. Gravity will, bring it down, and it gets in our air, gets in our water. It will get into all your organic vegetables. So, there's so many environmental toxins. We have this phobia about bugs, so we have to kill everything. So we have all these, pesticides, and so what's really before I mention about this, I rarely watch TV, but there was something on 60 Minutes, and this reporter went down to the South Pole, and he says, just listen. And it was perfectly quiet. And he goes, just look around. And there was like nothing there. And then they basically got a sample of the ice. They dug down, and they got a sample of ice, and they dug deep enough, and they radio labeled it, and they figured out it was 200 years, this ice. And they looked at environmental toxins. It had over 200 toxins back then. So there's no place in the world that you're going to be free of toxins. It's everywhere. So anyway, the President's Cancer Panel in 2010, this is a huge report. It was a 240-page report by the President's Cancer Panel. And this is the first time it basically focused on environmental toxins as the majority cause of cancer. And the true burden of environmental induced cancers have been grossly underestimated. You know, if you go to Europe and you have a product, a chemical product, you have to prove that it's safe. Versus the United States, you get it, you get a patent, boom, they don't even do health studies on it, and then 30 years later it ruins our environment, and they go, oh, this is toxic, let's remove it. That's our broken system. We have a system that basically pumps out 40 to 60,000 new chemicals. It's just since World War II. So it's a broken system. So the past 30 years, the federal agencies and institutes have estimated that the environmental pollutants can cause 2% of all cancers. I don't believe it's 2%. I think it's close to 90%. And it's not just cancer, it's basically all our chronic diseases that we see. The panel called these estimates woefully out of date. The panel lambasted the chemical industry for using them to justify its claims that specific products pose little or no cancer risk. And actually they singled out several different things. BPA, where do we find BPA? It's in plastics, it's in bottled water. And it's an endocrine disrupting agent. It's basically like an estrogen-like molecule. And I see so many guys now in their 30s with low testosterone, and all day long they're drinking bottled water. I have people that came back from Afghanistan and from Iraq, and they basically said the helicopters would basically drop a crate of water in the desert, and it would just sit and bake there. And all the chemicals coming out of that plastic, the water didn't even look like water. It was this like murky stuff that they just basically had to drink. And here's a 30-year-old guy with a testosterone of 130, and it's probably all the xenoestrogens, all the other chemicals is basically causing them to have other problems. So anyway, it says the American people, even before they're born, are bombarded continually with a myriad combination of these dangerous exposures. There was one study I saw that if you sample the umbilical blood of a newborn baby, it ranges between 40 to 200 chemicals already. They don't even have a chance. It's already, they're polluted. They're toxic. So anyway, you asked the American Cancer Society, which I think is the biggest joke in the world, so don't participate in contribute money to them, because it's all about profit. It's not about, they have done nothing in terms of preventing cancer. So that the conclusion does not represent scientific consensus. So they go, we have to really make, they said, well, okay, interesting, but let's work on smoking and basically obesity. But if you look at the panel of the American Cancer Society, you'll see so many of them basically they're basically owners of Monsanto. They're basically owners of basically a lot of chemical industries, pharmaceutical, and it's all about money. So we have a broken system. We can't fix it. But we can make a difference to our youth. That's the thing. It's education. Anyway, so in the United States, up to 99% of ingredients of any products can be withheld from labels under trade secrecy laws if they are categorized as inert or others. So here's that one study. Sorry, I kind of overestimated. 55 to 121 chemicals or toxins were found in the umbilical blood of a newborn. So there's actually more than 80,000 new chemicals since World War II. Over 4 billion pounds of toxic chemicals are released by industry into the environment each year. That's a lot, 4 billion tons. Pounds, 4 billion pounds. Including 72 million pounds of recognized carcinogens. Of the top 20 chemicals discharged to the environment, nearly 75% are known to or suspected to be toxic to the developing human brain. So we have a category of toxins called POP, P-O-P. It's not soda, I know. in Allentown, in eastern Pennsylvania, we call it soda, and then you could go over the Allegheny Mountains and it's pop. But anyway, soda pop. But anyway, pop, this terms mean persistent organic pollutants, and they are like, these are pollutants that will stay in our system forever. They do not biodegrade. These are the things that basically we're just killing ourselves. They're like invisible styrofoam. And anyway, so there's some dirty dozens. I'm not going to name all of them, but here are some. There's some pesticides like DDT and dieldrin and aldrin. And I've actually checked myself for environmental toxins. And actually, I'll tell you a little later about it, but anyway, there's something called dioxins, which is unintentional chemical byproducts. So sometimes things are burnt, and then dioxins are basically released into the environment. So from incinerators, when they're burning things from the hospital, dioxins being released, or burning things from industry, dioxins is being released. So do you remember this? It was in the news. 2004. This is in Yugoslavia. They had Viktor Yushchenko, and he was really good looking, and they got poisoned because of politics. And it's invisible. I mean, it's not invisible. It's tasteless. It's odorless. It's basically you can't detect it. And he apparently drank some, and boom, he rapidly aged. So that's what environmental toxicity. I mean, that's one extreme. I'm just saying. That's rapidly aged. So remember that one woman that I said it was high school, and she was gorgeous, tall, beautiful, and then 10 years later, oh my God, well, maybe she had a little dioxin. I don't know. But. So the first endocrine disrupting agent is called DDT. And raise your hand if you remember basically those trucks that sprayed for mosquitoes with DDT. You remember running around them, chasing them, it was cool. That was the dumbest thing you did. So actually, we didn't know back then. We thought it was cool. We thought it was safe to humans, or just killing the mosquitoes. So the whole story was that there was basically a scientist that noticed that the bald eagles was dropping in Florida. The population was dropping. So basically, it was a biologist. So she asked she asked other biologists, and they basically was doing a survey, and they noticed it was all the Northeast. It was dropping. And then it took some time to figure out what happened, but it's kind of an interesting story. But there's a book, anyway, there was a book that came #1, and it actually linked environmental toxins, DDT, to basically killing amphibians, the bald eagle, and the peregrine falcon. And there was a big outcry, like in the late 60s. And the thing is that it was like there was a big movement to get DDT out. So eventually the EPA was formed, and then down the road, like 5 years later, they go, okay, we'll have to ban DDT. So DDT was banned in 1972. So anyway, it's a neurotoxin. It can be an endocrine disrupting agent. DDT actually breaks down to DDE, which is more prevalent in the environment. And the half-life of DDT in the soil is 57 years. Remember, you need 5 half-lives before it gets rid of it. So you're talking about over 200 years, 250 before it's out. But guess what? Other countries that we're getting our vegetables from Brazil and other countries from South America, they spray with DDT anyway, so we get it on our vegetables. So DDT has been linked to breast cancer. It's been associated with miscarriages, low sperm count, preterm birth. It acts as a weak estrogen. And we have this phenomenon, I think, of extinction of men. I mean, there are more and more fertility clinics that are popping up. It's just not just in the United States, it's around the world. I mean, couples are having trouble to get pregnant, and it's these environmental toxins that's poisoning our system. So, the average testosterone level, I'm sure if you looked 30 years ago for a 40-year-old, was probably 700. I mean, I've seen some literature where just the data was, they're 650 to 700. I'm seeing testosterone in 40-year-olds to 200. And it's just like only 20 years later. So it's like, what has happened? I mean, it's like we're not talking about this. That's the whole thing. We're really poisoning our system. So we're going to have an evolution where can't even get up, and that's not a good sign. So there's phthalates, BPA, parabens. They're all anti-androgens and also xenoestrogen or estrogen-like molecules, and they all disrupt the endocrine system. Parabens basically is used in all personal cosmetics. So if you washed your hair, you probably had parabens in your shampoo and your conditioner. So that's why I don't take a shower or anything like that. So it's better to be smelly. All right, so anyway, it's found in basically everything we use. So it's, I try to buy paraben-free stuff. And approximately only 85% of cosmetics have parabens. So anyway, since 1990s, parabens have been deemed as a xenoestrogen. So it's been known for many, many years. Topical application of parabens can be detected in the serum within 1 hour. So I know when my wife puts all her makeup on that, it's like, oh my God, how many chemicals? So, but the thing is, BPA is also, think of bottled water. It's found in also inside cans and the thermal paper of receipts. So I don't like to hold those receipts when I go, here's your receipts. I go, fine, you can keep it. So it's in lined water pipes, in addition inside baby bottles, and infant formula packaging. So BPA, and there was a study in 2014 of 308 men, 98% had detectable BPA. Men with the highest level of BPA had the lowest level of testosterone and also significantly lower percentage of progressive or motile sperm. And BPA is, as I mentioned, is an anti-estrogen and has an estrogen effect. So phthalates are chemicals to make plastic more flexible, and it's also used as a dissolving agent. And I don't know if you can see all this, but phthalates have been found in multiple things, including toys and including your IV tubing and IV bags, unless you have an IV glass, but we don't have that in my office. And so in plastic bottles and textiles, and it's found in glues and many different other things too. So everyone has been exposed to phthalates. 100% detection of metabolites of urinary phthalates in the population studies. And phthalates have been associated with decreased bone mineral density in older women. So here's this thing about fertility. There's a study, a 4-year study following 501 couples, and they're trying to get pregnant. And this was not done at a fertility clinic. It was done outside of a fertility clinic. And the men with the higher levels of phthalates correlated with infertility, similar to the results with smoking. So they're all bad. So how can we get rid of these fat-soluble toxins? Okay, so I'm going to try to speak like this. This is it's through our liver. So our liver is really an important organ, and I really did not learn this concept about our liver. So our liver is like this. Actually, I had to put it down. So I tell my patients that our liver is like this. It's like a bucket. Imagine this is a bucket, right? And at the bottom of the bucket is a spigot. So if you open up the spigot, you can drain everything out of the bucket. If you put more than you can drain, guess what's going to happen? It's going to overflow with free radicals and toxins. And this is going to damage the most precious structure in your body. And do you know what the most precious structure in your body is? Take a guess. Anyone? Brain, what? Liver, heart. Go a little more cellular. DNA, right. It's our DNA. You damage your DNA, guess what's going to happen? It's going to cause premature aging, chronic disease, cancer, and death. That's why you have to do a detox. That's why you have to open up the spigot. And it's so important to basically get this drained. And guess what? It has to come out of your, you have to poop it out. So if you only go like once a week, all that toxins are coming back in your system. So my goal, actually, there's one doctor that we talked in between breaks, and I was saying that the top two things I really recommend is sleep and also poop. And I add a lot of magnesium citrate, and at bedtime that can also help you sleep. And if that doesn't work, I use vitamin C powder to help them go. And you got to get that going. So if you go once a week, I'm trying to go 3 times a week, and they feel phenomenal. And then maybe 4 or 5 times a week, and just try to get it up. So they should try to go daily, because it's really about removing toxins, and that's the key. And one other pearl I forgot to mention is that the B5, B6, they're specific for the adrenals, but I use a B complex. And there's B complex, I just tell them to use 1 pill twice a day, or 2 pills a day in the morning time to help with their adrenal fatigue. But I try to only give 3 supplements when they leave my office as a first patient, because if you offer like 6 or 7, then probably not going to come back. They're going to say, just top 3, sleep and poop and something else. But that's really what I try to focus. Now the liver cleanse is what we also, I recommend. And I kind of want to explain a little more about the liver. So you understand this concept about opening up the spigot. And just imagine, our liver is really unique. So imagine this is basically water, which is, and then you pour oil, right, into this glass of water. So guess what happens? It doesn't mix. Our liver can actually break it down in 2 steps into water so that you can excrete it out that way. So that's what the liver does. And I didn't learn this in medical school, and I have medical students who rotate through my office, and they're in their first or second, actually in their 3rd year, and they didn't learn this in any of their medical school education, so it's not really being taught out there. So if I have the energy, my 3rd children's book will be about the liver. I have a really great storyline, but I just too many things on my plate. All right, I had to use my 2 hands to show that model, but anyway, if you can detox, I really believe if you can have your patients detox, how many people have done detoxes themselves, like a 10-day, oh, you guys are all speaking to the choir, all right. So let's go outside and throw the Frisbee and have some fun. All right, so our liver really is an amazing organ. It really has to remove toxins and not soluble toxins. If everything was water-based, we'd just pee it out. But in life, it's not all one, it's usually a mix. So the thing is that there's phase 1, which is cytochrome P450 dependent, and then there's phase 2. And this is, we'll go a little more in detail. But the worst thing to have is when you have too much phase 1 and you're low in phase 2, because you're generating a lot of free radicals, but then phase 2 neutralizes it. It actually makes it neutral so that you can actually get it out of your system. So it becomes water soluble. And this is the problem. I have a patient that basically, she's young, 40-ish, she's already had 2 cancers. She's had thyroid cancer and now breast cancer, and she's a 13-year-old daughter. And I said, let's do a test, a genetic test, a swab in the cheek, to see what your pathways look at. I'm looking at basically if you have a defect or a SNP in terms of phase 1, phase 2. She makes 0 glutathione in her liver. And I said, you're going to get a 3rd cancer, 4th cancer, and your daughter, if she has that, is going to probably follow your footsteps. So you need, to take glutathione. We need to basically look at what your defect is. And I do some different things in my office that we look at some cool stuff, early cancer by special blood test. And sometimes they come back and they say, why? And I say, well, let's look at your genetic makeup. Let's see if you have a SNP in your detoxification. Because remember, 2010 that the President's Council saying environmental toxin leads to cancer? It's damage to our DNA. Cancer is really damage to our DNA. And all day long I have patients who goes, well, what about hormones? Well, hormones actually has a bad rap to basically, you think of hormones to like testosterone to prostate cancer and estrogen to breast cancer. The thing is that if you take bioidentical hormones, especially progesterone and estrogen, you can actually, and testosterone, improve their telomeres. So you improve their telomeres, the end of the DNA, you can keep their DNA healthy. So the thing is, it's really environmental toxins. Hormones are a very small percent. It's really toxins, 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 and do you have a defect in terms of removing toxins out of your system? So our liver basically can transform any fat-soluble toxins into water-soluble toxins, and it's excreted either in the feces or urine. But you got to poop well, that's the key. Go ahead, Mike.
What is that test, the genetic test that you use right now currently?
I use several different tests to look at your genetic defect in terms of removing toxins. There's a company called Genova Diagnostic Labs, and they have something called detoxigenomics. You can do 23andMe for less money. It's $199, and then with that data, send it to Genetic Genie, which is on the website, and they'll interpret it for free, or you can donate money. There are other websites that actually can interpret this, phase 1, phase 2, but I kind of like the one, I use all of them, that's the thing. And the most expensive one is with detoxigenomics, but it doesn't look at the complete phase 2. They're missing a couple things, but with that phase 2, there's some things that we don't know how to improve anyway. So, but phase 1 we can definitely improve. So let's go to here. So you need great nutrients. That's the thing. Without nutrients, nothing's going to work really well. Your adrenals won't work well. Your liver's not going to work well. Your gut's not going to heal. Your mitochondria is not going to work well. So anyway, there's specific nutrients that really helps our liver to work well. So if you have basically, let's see if this is a moving slide here. So you have an environmental, let's say, toxin, and what happens is that it attaches like an oxygen molecule to the toxin in phase 1, and it becomes a free radical. And then, here we go. So it moves. So now it's a free radical. So now your body has to neutralize it. So with phase 2, it actually, oops. I guess there's a missing part. It actually neutralizes it and makes it into a water-soluble toxin. So phase 1 is really a cytochrome P450. We all have cytochrome P450. You have it, you have it, you have it. We all have it. And there's special nutrients like magnesium and L-cysteine to help with phase 1 and also helps with phase 2. Oh, there it is. There's that missing part. So it goes from that free radical to a neutralized toxins. And phase 2, basically, you have to conjugate it with a glucuronic acid, glycine, glutathione, or a salt methyl group. So you have to neutralize it. That's the thing. So phase 2 has basically the process to go from a free radical to basically to a water-soluble toxin. All right, here's an example of benzene. Benzene is a toxin. It's a fat soluble. You make it into a free radical called phenol, and then you sulfate it and become the phenol sulfate, and that's neutralized, and you basically get rid of it that way. So that's an example of phase 1 to phase 2 to remove toxins out of our body. So impaired detoxification, the worst scenario is you're basically hyper phase 1. You're basically pumping out a lot of from your cytochrome P450, and then you have a defect in phase 2. So that's not a good sign. So anyway, you can do a lot of different things. So you can look at their SNPs or genetic single nucleotide polymorphism. And in this person, it's the cytochrome P451B1 and the cytochrome P450 2C9. This is all involved with phase 1. And there's many different, quote, I mean, this, if you get into the science, you can come up here, it's not like you study 1 hour and you know it all. I mean, you can go really, really deep on this, and I'm still learning. And I have one patient that actually, she's teaching me, and so she actually has learned a lot of different things that I just don't have the time, so she gives me the nuts and bolts on this field of genomic medicine. But anyway, cytochrome P450 1B1, think of 1B1 as breast cancer. And it's really the it's basically responsible for the 4-hydroxylation of estrogen. So 1B1 is responsible for the activation of toxins such as polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, which is like product from cigarette smokes, car exhaust, char-broiled foods, PCBs. And if you have a genetic SNP of the 1B1, you're at higher risk for breast cancer. So if you're young and you're dating, you probably want to get a genomic testing on your significant other to see how healthy they are. All right. That's a joke. All right. But if I know what I know now, all right, so the 1A2, I mean, you can go, I think I got like 2 or 3 examples of this, but 1A2 is interesting. Coffee is, a lot of people like coffee. I just never drank a cup of coffee in my life. And it's metabolized by the cytochrome P450 1A2. And they did a study in Costa Rica with about 2,000 patients. And they noticed that people with this SNP, and they drank 4 cups of coffee a day, had a 64% increase of having a heart attack because they're slow metabolizers of coffee. So raise your hand if you like coffee. Almost everyone, right. I love the smell of it, but wouldn't you want to know if you have basically the 1A2 issue? You're a slow metabolizer of it. So phase 2 is you have to neutralize it, either methylation or glutathione. So this test basically looks at the glutathione pathway for the brain and skin there. So it has not a complete issue, but there's others. That was just an example of looking at genetics, your genetic sequencing or SNPs of your detoxification pathway. All right. Yeah, it answers my question, right, thanks. So overall, you have to minimize toxins. So if you have a patient that smokes, they have to quit smoking. It's an addiction. Fortunately, I have very few patients that smoke. And then encourage them to try to eat as organic as possible, but I also remind them you should be tested for heavy metals. And if you do have heavy metals, what I see, which in Florida, in Central Florida in Orlando, is a lot of lead and mercury. It's not lead from the bullets, but lead from elsewhere. And then avoid mercury amalgam fillings. So if you have it, you should remove them. Have real plants in your home and office. And do not microwave plastics. Don't even microwave. I mean, I know people are, it's part of their lifestyle, but if you can avoid microwaving, that's cool. And also, try not to bring toxins into your house with wearing shoes in your house. So, what I offer for my patients that are struggling with energy and they want to lose weight, a lot of them are overweight. They're not going to die if you ask them to do a modified fast. And this is what I do. I have them do a 10-day liver cleanse, and I think that's part of the slide that I'm going to have down the road. But the thing is that the modified fast is very simple. You can start this on Monday. You can go to your patient that basically goes, what can I do? How can I basically lose some weight? And if you think about it, we're a culture that we eat too much. I mean, it's one of those things that we're eating 3 meals a day. We rarely eat, we eat a little late breakfasts, or maybe we have something. And then by the time dinner comes, that's our biggest meal, and then about 2 to 3 hours later, you go to bed. So you can do a quick dietary history. I don't have a dietitian in my office. I just listen to what they typically eat, drink, what time their biggest meal is, if they have, how much alcohol they drink. And the thing is that they're becoming, I call them the Americanized sumo wrestler. They eat really nothing in the morning because they're not hungry, and they eat way too much at night, and they've gained about 50, 60 pounds over some time or more. And you have to break the habit, because you're telling them to eat more in the morning time and less in the evening. But if you're still, there's theory and reality. And in theory, they know what to do, but in reality, they're just basically stuck. So I say the only way you can break this cycle is skip maybe 1 dinner a week or 2. If you can do more, the better, but just start with 1. You skip 1 dinner and nothing after 5 p.m. If you're starving, have a handful of nuts, but I like warm chicken broth. It's amazing. I've done this where, 7 o'clock, you're like really hungry, and you drink a warm chicken broth. Don't get the low salt one, it's the worst taste. But anyway, get the one that's real, and it cuts down your hunger. It's amazing. You just sip on that, put it in a coffee mug, sip on that, boom. You're basically, you will lose more weight, and they'll wake up hungry. So I watch my kids eat a nice meal, and what I do is I go through different phases, and with the fast, sometimes I'll go through maybe 2 weeks where I don't eat anything after 5 or something like that. So I watch my kids eat, and it's amazing. I tell my patients, if you dream about breakfast, then you're going to lose weight, because you gotta really, that's one of those things. It's like you wake up, it may not be the first time you skip dinner, the next morning you're hungry. It may be by the 3rd or 4th or 5th time you skip in a row that you'll wake up hungrier, and then you break that cycle. You have to break the cycle, that's the thing. We're in a society that our parents, basically largest meals at night, their parents' largest meal at night, and it's a generation. So the people who live beyond 100 years old that are basically taking not a supplement or not even a hormone, and they're functional and doing really well. The common theme among all of them is they generally eat only 2 meals a day, breakfast and lunch, and skip dinner. They've either grew up during the war or during the Depression, and that's all they had. And they just kept up with that, and that's the thing. So you have to have some flexibility, if there's a wedding or something like that, just go there. You don't have to impose to everyone, no one should eat dinner, you guys are all going to hell. No, you just have to do it yourself, and that's the thing. It's, and if you struggle with weight, honestly, a modified fast will really help. And that's something very simple. Try to, instead of having 21 meals or more per week, try to, shoot down to, let's say, 16 or 18 or whatever. All right. Other things that can help remove toxins is, your antioxidants, A, B, C, and E, magnesium, L-cysteine, L-glycine, they all can help there. Enhanced methylation, this is huge in terms of methylating. And you can see all the stuff there, from folic acid to methylated B12, trimethylglycine. We offer that in our IVs. And you can see SAMI and everything else there too. So you can do a medical food detox program, and I think that Jamie you guys have a program for a detox program. It can vary. Different companies have different things. They're about 95% similar to every detox program out there. I've done the liver cleanse probably, I think over 60 times. I know when my wife first started it, she cried on day 5. It was a little tough because back then it was like there was no fish at all. You couldn't eat any fish, but just vegetables. And that, it was kind of funny. She was like crying. And I said, it's not like we're in North Korea or something like that. We're going to get reported that we're eating 2 meals a day. In North Korea, they only eat 1 meal a day. If you get caught eating 2, you get reported. And so they're starving out there. So what I like to do is, a lot of people, they just need to step back, clean up their diet. So with the 10-day liver cleanse, I tell them no coffee, and everyone rolls their eyes, oh my God. No dairy, no gluten, no animal protein. Oh my God, no animal protein. And then the last one is no alcohol. I give them sometimes coffee on the first liver cleanse because it's like, okay, I'll give you, just eliminate 4 out of the 5. But, I don't want, and they're happy if you do a modified liver cleanse. And there's usually a medical food shake and some supplements you take, and they have to finish it. And usually these medical food shakes has rice protein, so you're going to get plenty of protein, and it actually helps. They're all the ingredients that we talked about the couple slides that basically helps in terms of getting rid of all phase 1, help phase 1 and phase 2. So, and then you should repeat it every 3 to 6 months. So sometimes I do a 10-day liver cleanse, and my wife looks at me on day 10. She goes, "I want to do one." I was like, "I just did it." And that means you have to do it again. So I've done it many times back to back. It's like, I think she likes to hurt me. So anyway. Well, detoxification it's going to help with energy, with better focus. Will help some people lose weight. I know a lot of people when they do it have the record. Someone lost 20 pounds in 10 days, and he's saying, "I probably was the most toxic person ever." But his wife was jealous because she only lost like 6 pounds and didn't get the same results. But the thing is, sometimes guys lose more than women. But the key in detoxification is really protecting your DNA. And you can do telomere testing, or you can even look at the 8-hydroxy-D-guanosine test that sees if you have DNA damage. And the 8-hydroxy-D-guanosine test is a test that once your DNA is damaged, it's going to be elevated, and you can detect that in your blood or urine. And a simple urine test, you can actually see if you have early DNA damage. And if you have early DNA damage, that means you're on the process of not aging gracefully. So the thing is, you got to remove toxins, and that's the key. So anyway, if I'm going to leave it to Jamie to talk about his products on detoxification. So we'll switch mics.
Thanks, Dr. Lee. I know a lot of us have heard about detoxification over the course of our career, but that was really well presented, and it really showed some more insight into this genetic testing and variations and risk factors. So about 15 years ago when I was exposed to that, I thought that was going to be the norm like the next week, right? And here we are 15 years later saying, well, it may take another 15. But I think it's up to us to set the example. People on our team did really well with a cleanse this year, and myself, and then the next step is now maybe doing some genetic testing that would really help clarify for us what we need. And it's a lot easier to promote it to our staff and our patients. So he recommended a few different formulas. So one of the points he made, which is what I love, is trying to keep it to 3 formulations or less. I've done consults over the last 20, 25 years, and one of the goals with Nutritional Frontiers was more comprehensive formulations so that when you do your protocols, you can do it in 3 things or less. Now, of course, cancer or these unique, complex patients may take a little more. However, the cleanse is very simple. So most companies, what they were doing with their cleansing powders, medical foods or meal replacement shakes, is over the course of the last 20 years, what I saw, the trend was to keep increasing the number of ingredients in the powder, right? It's like, our detox powder is better than yours because we added 3 more things, right? And what happens over time, inevitably, we've all witnessed this, is the taste goes first, right? So you now have all these other ingredients, now the taste may go. The price skyrockets, And now with all the sensitivities and food allergies and ALCAT testing and muscle testing and all these different things we're doing, we found that inevitably they're sensitive to something in the product, right? So we had a team meeting and we decided, let's fast forward 5 years and see what would the shake and powder and medical food be like then. And we felt it would be a stripped down version. Let's go the other way. So the nice thing with the Super Shake, it's all non-GMO vegan. There's no hormones, there's no dairy, there's no soy, no gluten, no artificial flavorings, colorings. And the only thing it has is a vegan protein blend, which is from pumpkin, pea, and rice. So it's really nice, very low allergy potential. We added MCT oil, the good fats. As Dr. Lee presented, you need that good amount of energy. It's an energy-dependent process. You need vitamins, minerals, protein, fiber, and good fats. So the only other thing we put in there is fiber. So you have a protein blend, you have fiber, and you have the MCT oil. And the nice thing is 0 sugar. I see a lot of these powders that have 5, 10, 15 grams of sugar. So that's a Super Shake. We have samples in the back. Has everyone tried that before, Super Shake? The second thing we look at for the protocol is any of the Pro Colors. Those are fruit and veggie-based powders. We encourage the clients to juice more. However, buying the machine, the juicer, buying the vegetables every week, actually making the juice, cleaning the machine, it becomes cumbersome or time intensive for people. So the Pro Colors is a nice way to juice at a dramatically reduced price. Plus, you get a full blend of nutrients that you may not find at the grocery store due to in season or things like that. So any of the colors would be good for detoxing, especially the greens. My favorite's the oranges, but whatever you like, at least one of them would work really well with the powder. And then we have a nutraceutical. The third thing would be Live Clear 2. So all the instructions are right in the booklet. The diet's in there too. And I just want to give a little sneak peek at what we have moving forward. Our team worked on, and thanks again to Robin, doing a program this summer for us. We created a lifestyle handbook. So that's going to be released here within the next probably 2 months. So that's something to look forward to that brings us all together. In the meantime, for specific things like detox or adrenal, we have all the wellness solutions, okay? All right, lunch is set up right down the hall. I'd like to thank Dr. Lee for a great first half. And when I told him the other day, he says, this is a 4-hour presentation. I says, no. This is two-hour presentations. So thanks to Dr. Lee. Yeah, get the whip out. Let's have a nice lunch. Get a little bit of sun if you want. And we'll try and start about 1 o'clock on the nose. Thanks, folks.